ways that the Lord brought me comfort was Him showing up and meeting me in little ways, going for a walk and feeling like the Lord was close. To me, that was a huge part of my journey, was the Lord actually putting me in community. And I read I think it's in Psalms, where it says that the Lord sets the lonely in family. And the Lord did that for me. He put me in family, and that's one of the many ways that He comforted me in this journey, that He put people around me who just were willing to partner with me in that space and care for my heart in that space.
The Lord's brought me comfort just by sitting with me in my mess and not being like a judge or a mean father that is being critical. During my time of just healing and processing, I just think of the days that it's just me and Him, and He was able to, just my life situation, block out the rest of the world and cry and cuss and just write it all out, all the pain and everything. But I felt like He was there and wasn't scared by any of it.
I think one of the main ways that the Lord has brought me comfort is communicating His love through people and inviting me into not just vulnerability, like with Him, in that place of realizing that I could fully express my pain, fully express my questions to the Father and experience Him draw near, but Him communicating that through people with skin on, inviting me into vulnerability and courage to share what I had journeyed or what I was experiencing, and receiving that same level of comfort and acceptance that He wanted has been a key way. And so finding community and safe people to talk to has been one of the ways, and Him providing that has been one of the ways that God has comforted me the most.
The Lord brings comfort just by His availability, His nearness, and how He wants to be a part of everything. He's this perfect Father who is not distant but relational and wants to be invited into even the smallest things and the biggest things. And through this relationship, it's not just one-sided, it's not just me talking, but we actually can hear His voice as well. And He loves to speak to things and encourage and bless and lead.
Well, I can say that through my journey, when I met the Lord, when I first began to feel intimately connected to the Lord, it was life-giving. It began really informing my sense of well-being. When I was in my early 20s, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1. So I had struggled with mental illness for a long time. And when I started my journey into the Lord more deeply through prayer, just connecting with the presence of the Lord and who God is, then I started getting really radical freedom from my experience of mental illness. And so as far as kind of well-being, when I feel distant from the Lord or disconnected from His presence, disconnected from His peace, I feel destabilized.
Comfort has, I would say, been a big part of this. I was raised in church, but I feel like a lot of what I walked away with was a lot of religion, just a lot of having to do all the things just right. Even by 17 years old or so, I was exhausted from all the performing. And so the fact that Jesus started meeting me as a person and relating with me, and like I could go to Scripture and it wasn't just something someone said a long time ago, it was applicable to my life now, like it told me what God thought about me, became transformational because I realized there's a person behind this information. And that partnership, that walking with Him, the fact that He cared to walk with me and still walks with me, looks past my sin, forgives it, moves on with me, calls me His son, all that stuff has been transformational.
He's definitely brought me a lot of comfort in showing me that I'm not alone. What I was seeking from in a woman wasn't sexual at all, it was about intimacy. The comfort I've had is knowing that I could have the deep, intimate connection with women that I wanted to have, that I'm actually designed to have with other women in the design that God gave me, made for me. And the comfort that, I'm still believing for a husband, but there's so much hope in that. And He's brought me a lot of comfort in showing me even the ways that I've experienced a reignition, if you will, and even being, finding safety with men again and being attracted to men has been this beautiful part of my story that's returned. And so I found a lot of comfort in even seeing the transformation in my own life, that the Lord has done a good work in me.
One of the biggest things was for me, it was a renewed sense of restoring my innocence. Knowing and feeling God's presence around me And he wasn't trying to rush me. I would try and rush it. But God was just so kind, and he brought people around me. One of the biggest things was like having healthy male friendships and God just speaking through them. Because my go-to thing was a lot of rejection and not having real intimate friends. But through having first thing for me was intimacy with God, with Jesus. And then as that increased, God brought other men around me.
The comfort, I would say, were also the people that he brought. The people who loved me where I was at, didn't give up on me, believed that the Lord had more for me, were praying for me. They came alongside when I was the messiest and said, it's okay. They too didn't see me, through my mess. They saw me as, you know what, you're still this gem. The Lord's created you on purpose for a purpose. And so I had lots of support. And then the Lord too would just meet with me. He was very faithful, and he would show up. And sure, maybe he didn't answer my questions right away, but he did answer my questions. And sometimes it was through his word, and sometimes, it was through a teaching, and sometimes it was just him that answered the question. And I never felt alone through the journey. Yeah, it was hard, and there was things that I was like, I don't know if I can do this, Lord. And then I don't know, somebody would come alongside and they're like, I know you're in a really hard place, but the Lord's got you, and this is really good. And at first I really hated that when people would be like, oh, you're in such a good place. And I'm like, this is painful. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, but the fruit. And so the encouragement, the people that he brought along to encourage me, to hang out there with me, that was really comforting to know that. And he chose them. They told me, the Lord has said to me, this one's yours, and so it was like, I felt like to a degree, the Lord kind of handpicked people for me to come alongside, to mentor, to be the example, to continue to push on.
The Lord has brought me comfort in just so many ways. And of course, first and foremost, it's just been the revelation of the fact that he loves me without condition. And I know that for many of us in 21st century, it feels as though there's conditions to everything. That somehow or other, there's no such thing as a free lunch, they say. But with Jesus, I came to the understanding that actually it is all free. His heart burns in a way that nobody else's heart burns for me. And that's where my comfort comes from. So wherever I'm looking for somebody's attention or a word of affirmation, or even when it comes to something that's going to satisfy the affectionate need within my own heart, Jesus comes and he's there. He promises me that even though my father and my mother abandoned me, he says, I'm never going to abandon you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to forsake you. That was really hard for me to understand because my story is riddled with a sense in which I was deeply insecure around whether or not my father and mother did love me. I was left as a child. I was abandoned. So coming into this revelation was above everything, above every relationship I'd ever had. So how does he comfort me? He comforts me by never ever leaving my side at any point. And of course, he reveals himself to me and he speaks to me through his word. When I come before him and I learn to shut my mouth and just to stop and to listen to him, I listen to him in so many ways. It could be through nature. It could be through music. I've got to be selective of what I listen to. But he's there, present, I believe, wanting to speak to all of us. So he comforts me, above all, through nature, through music, through silence, through relationship with others. But above all, when I dare to stop and to choose to enter his presence, he's there ready to look at me and to shine his face upon me.